Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulallah. Sallallahu alayka wa ala ahl baytika al-mazlumin. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Ya rahmatullah al-wasi'ah. يا باب النجاة الأمة يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. قال الله تعالى في كتاب الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Holy Quran in Surah 6, Ayat 162, say, indeed my prayer, my sacrifice, my living and my dying are all for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. During these next upcoming nights, I want to talk about ladies in Islam, the esteemed, respectable, honorable ladies in Islam. Oftentimes, we talk a lot about the men in Islam, and sometimes these ladies are not talked about as much. So I thought it would be very good to talk about these ladies as they are role models, not only for women, but also for men, and that we can extract benefits from these ladies and use them in our day-to-day life, inshallah. So there are three ladies that I'd like to talk about tonight. Combine their stories together and then gain some benefits that we can use, practical benefits we can use in our day-to-day life. There are ladies that put their lives on the line for Ahlul Bayt, alayhimus salam, defending Ahlul Bayt. And we have to pay tribute to these ladies' sacrifices. We can gain inspiration from their dedication to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi and his progeny, alayhimus salam. The first lady I'd like to talk about is a lady from the Ansar. Her name was Nusayba bint Ka'ab. She was also known as Amara Ansariya. And some have said that her name was Umara. So this lady, she was in the Battle of Uhud. And many of the companions who claimed to be very brave and faithful people, they turned their backs and ran away from the battlefield. But there was a few of them who did not run. As we know, Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam always stood by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. One of these people who did not run was this lady, Nusayba. She was a lady from Medina, fearless believer. In all Islam, we can justly be proud of her courage and what she stood for. She was noted for her skills as a surgeon, because someone might say, what was this lady doing in the Battle of Uhud? Only jihad is on men. Why was the lady in the Battle of Uhud? She was known for her skills in surgery. She was a nurse. She came to Uhud with the army from Medina, and she would take care of the soldiers who were injured. So we'd like to note here that in Islam, women were contributing to society. They were working to help other people. It's not, as some people claim, that women should not have education, women should, or we force women to stay in the home, and that they shouldn't go out and learn or contribute to society. This is thinking of Taliban and other groups, extremist groups. But we see this example of Nusayba, who was a surgeon working to help the wounded people in the battlefield. So we see that it's encouraged. Women should go get education. Women should become doctors, become nurses, and other fields to help Islam. We can gain this benefit from this story. At the beginning of this battle, we see that Nusayba, she would bring water for the soldiers. She would tend for them if they were wounded. But when the Muslims were getting defeated and the people fled from the battlefield, her role changed from a nurse and a surgeon to that of a warrior. At one time, the enemy, they brought the archers to shower arrows on the Holy Prophet. So Nusayba, she picked up this big shield and held it in front of Rasulullah to block these arrows from coming on him. Shortly after that, the Meccans started charging with spears and swords. So Nusayba cast this shield on the side and she picked up the sword and protected the Holy Prophet. One idol worshiper came very close to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but what did she do? She jumped in front of the Holy Prophet to defend him. And when this idol worshiper swung the sword to hit the Holy Prophet, she was struck on her shoulder with the sword. Even though she became wounded, she was undismayed. She stood between the Prophet and his enemies, defying them, defying death, defending Rasulullah. We can truly say that Nusayba's life was dedicated to defending her religion and supporting her Prophet. Even if she had to throw herself into death's arms to protect him, she would do it. We have to ask ourselves, how many of us would jump in front of a swinging sword for Rasulullah the way that she did? She was courageous. She was fearless when it came to defending the Holy Prophet from attacks. So we might ask ourselves, how can we benefit from this story, this brave lady's story? One thing we can take away from this story is that we should defend our religion. We should defend our Prophet from attacks. We're not physically here with the Holy Prophet to defend him in that same way that this brave lady did, but our Prophet and our religion is still under attack. How is it under attack? It's under attack by false propaganda and lies that are spread against Holy Prophet. Most people we talk to in the West today, they hear the name of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it has a negative connotation for them. They put their fingers in their ears and their minds shut down because of all the lies that the media fed them over the years. So we have to rise and defend the Holy Prophet. But how can we do it? There's 5 brief ways that we can do this. One is learning about the Holy Prophet's life, how he was rahmatal lil alameen, a mercy to the world. Because people paint the image of Rasulullah as a warmonger, na'udhu billah, we need to know how he was a mercy to the world and be able to explain this. Second, being the best Muslim that we can be by truly striving to live like Rasulullah. Third thing, when people notice good in your behavior and they compliment you for a good action, attribute it to learning it from the Holy Prophet. They say, Masha, they say, wow, your coworker says, wow, this behavior you have, where did you learn that? It's very good. I really like the way that you behave, or you did this thing or that thing. Say that I learned this from my Holy Prophet. He taught us to be like this. It wipes away the bad image that they have in their mind of Rasulullah. Fourth thing, we can write articles refuting these false allegations against the Holy Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Lastly, we can use our platform to inform people and clear the misconceptions about Islam from the people's minds. Maybe we have a platform that people look at. We have a lot of followers on social media. We can use this platform to educate others about the character of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is defending Rasulullah. So this is one of the takes that we can take away from the story of Nusayba bint Ka'ab, the defender of Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the first lady that I wanted to talk about tonight. The second lady that we'll discuss is a brave mother. Her name is Wahhab. She was present in the Battle of Karbala. She only had one child whose name was Wahhab, a son, her only son. and he had just gotten married 2 months prior to the tragedy of Karbala. So after his marriage in Kufa, the mother decided to take her son and her new daughter-in-law to a trip to Mecca. On their way back from Mecca, they found that Kufa was sealed off. So she's asking, why is Kufa shut down? Why is there a blockade? What is going on? She was told that a rebel group camped at Karbala and that Kufa was closed to protect the city from the attack of some rebels. She said, who are these rebels? What do you mean? What's going on? Who is this? Then she was told that the leader of the rebels was none other than Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam. On hearing that name, the lady Wahhab, she almost fainted. She was the widow of, there's a backstory to this. She was the widow of Abdullah Kalbi, and her son, this newlywed groom, was Wahhab ibn Abdullah Kalbi. So when Abdullah's wife was pregnant, she got very sick. Abdullah, her husband, went to Imam Ali alayhi salam and said, my wife and I have been without a child for a long time. Now, finally, she's expecting a baby and she's so sick, I fear that I might lose her and the child. Please, Mawla, pray for her. So he came to Imam Ali alayhi salam and asked to pray for his wife. Imam Ali alayhi salam prayed for them, and then she recovered and Wahhab was born. So the same year Imam Ali alayhi salam was martyred, a few months later, Wahhab was born. And then 2 years later after this, his father died. This widow, Wahhab, she brought her son Wahhab up with a lot of love and respect for Ahlul Bayt, alayhim wassalam. So now she's almost fainting because she hears that the son of Imam Ali alayhi salam was being accused of wanting to attack Kufa and kill the people there. She could not fathom this. This is strange. This can't be right. She actually refused to believe it, and she said to her son, Wahhab, I have to go find out what's going on in Kufa. I need to go find out what's going on. What is happening? So Wahhab said, I want to go too. I'm going to come with you. You're my mother. So the three arrived in Karbala on the 7th of Muharram. And it should be noted here, was very interesting. It's stated in Amali of Sheikh al-Suduq and also by Alama Majlisi that formerly Wahhab and his mother, they were Christians. They were not Muslims, they were Christians. And they had accepted Islam at the hands of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. When Wahhab, she came and she learned about the true situation, she decided to stay with Imam Hussein and fight for him. Wahhab wanted to fight for Imam Hussein. When he told his mother the decision to fight for Imam Hussein, what did she say? Was she afraid of her son fighting for Imam Hussein? Her only son was going to die. Would she tell him, no, don't go, it's dangerous? What did Wahhab say? She said, I am the proudest mother in all of Iraq. Look at what she was most proud of about her son. It was that he wanted to stand and defend Imam Hussein alayhi salam. That he put Imam Hussein's life before his own life. He was willing to sacrifice, even after becoming a newlywed, all of it for the sake of Imam Hussein. This should be every mother's dream, that their child is a defender and a supporter of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. This is what she was proud of. We see today that children, they're absorbing things very quickly and easily from a young age. They're looking to their parents, they're looking to the society around them in order to learn about life. It's imperative that we take an active role in guiding our children and instilling in them the love of seeking knowledge from a young age. And we see this importance from the saying of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, where he says, take action in teaching the traditions of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam to your children before the corrupted people proceed in corrupting them. Our children, they're a trust given to us by Allah. We have to honor that trust by taking care of them to the best of our ability. How do we do that? We have to share with them and encourage them to learn the precious knowledge that has been passed down to us from the Holy Prophet and the Imams, alayhimus salam. This is the most important duty that we have for our children. If we don't teach our children the pivotal role that our Imam has in our life, they could end up like the people of Kufa, who abandoned the Imam in his time of need. The people of Kufa, they turned their backs on Imam Hussein alayhi salam when he was outnumbered, and they sold their religion for political gain and financial gain. Na'udhu billah. They sold it for dunya, for this world. This world is nothing. We are working for the akhirah. They had the chance to gain the success of defending the Imam of their time, but they gave it up because they didn't know the true status of Imam Hussein. If our children are not brought up with this love and recognition of Imam of their time, how can we expect them to aid the Imam when he reveals himself? How can we expect them to aid Imam Sahib al-Zaman, Ajallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, when he needs us? It is vital that they know the Imam of their time, as the prophetic narration states. He who dies without knowing the Imam of his time dies a death of ignorance. The death of ignorance is a death of kufr. We want to die with the death of belief. There's no age requirement for starting to teach our children. We always have to teach them about Allah, teach them about Rasulullah, teach them about Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. We should let them see us praying in our homes so they get used to seeing how salat is done. Not only praying when we come to the masjid. Then they'll think we only pray when we go to the masjid, but we don't pray at home. We have to let them see us making salat. Don't go away and pray by yourself. Bring your kids with you. We should bring them to majalis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Let them grow up in the environment where Imam Hussein is remembered, the place that the angels attend. When we get together to remember Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the angels attend these majalis. So now it came that Wahhab ibn Abdullah Kalbi, it was his turn. He came out after he got permission, he came out onto the battlefield. His mother came with him on that day, and who told him, son, rise up, defend the grandson of Rasulullah. She's telling him to defend the grandson of Rasulullah, defend Imam Hussein. He attacked Yazid's army and killed a group of them, and one after the other. And he returned back to his mother and his wife, and they were facing him, and he said, "O mother, are you pleased with me now? Have I attained your satisfaction?" What did his mother say? She said, "I will not be pleased with you until you attain martyrdom in the presence of Imam Hussein, that you die and sacrifice your life for Imam Hussein. And this is what I will take pride in. Ya Bunay, O dear son, go and fight in the way of the grandson of Rasulullah, so that he may intercede for you on the day of resurrection." Wahhab promised his mother that he would do this. He swore to her that he would do this. So he charged out in the battlefield. He fought and he killed 19 horsemen and 12 foot soldiers. The enemies, they cut off the hands of Wahhab. And then they arrested him. They brought him to Umar ibn Sa'ad, la'natullah alayh, who told him, even the enemies said, "What bravery that you have." They admired his bravery for a young boy. And then these cursed people told him to behead Wahhab. Then after he was beheaded, if it wasn't enough for them to do this, they took the head of Wahhab and they threw it towards his mother, La ilaha illallah, who was by the tents of Imam Hussein. His mother lifted the head of her only son and she kissed it. And then she threw it back towards the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad and said, "What we have sacrificed for our Imam and for Islam, we don't take it back. I'm sorry that I only have one son. If I had 20 sons, they would have all fought Yazid today." She lifted up a peg out of the ground of one of the tents and she ran towards two people, and the narrations say that she killed two of these soldiers until Imam Hussein saw what she was doing and told her, Ya Ummul Wahhab, mother of Wahhab, go back. You and your son will be alongside the Holy Prophet while jihad is lifted from the women. Hearing this, she said, Ya Rab, O Lord, don't disappoint me. The Imam said, may your Lord never disappoint you, Ya Ummul Wahhab. We see that Ummul Wahhab and her son were awarded such a high status of the glad tidings from Imam Hussein that they would be with Rasulullah in the hereafter. And one of the things that we take away from this narration is that this high status is due to her putting Imam Hussein alayhi salam above everything else, even her own son. This is the true sacrifice in the way of Allah, that you love Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam even more than your own children, even more than your own mother, even more than your own father. Don't we read in all of these narrations that we have in our books that they start out when they come to the Imams and ask them a question, they say, may my mother and my father be sacrificed for you, Ya Imam. We read in Holy Quran, Surah 9, Ayat 24. Say, Qul in kana abwa'ukum. Say, if your fathers, wa abna'ukum, and your children, wa akhwanukum, and your brothers, wa azwajukum, and your spouses, and your kinsfolk, and your property which you have acquired, and the slackness of trade that you fear, and the dwellings or the houses that you like are dearer to you than Allah and His Messenger and striving in His way, then wait till Allah brings about His command, and Allah does not guide the transgressing people. We have to have love of Ahlul Bayt in our life. Do we truly mean that like Ummul Wahhab did? Take a moment, think to yourself, what is the most precious thing in your life? Think about it. What is your most precious, beloved thing in your life that you cannot live without? Would we sacrifice our most precious thing in life for the cause of Allah, as Ummul Wahhab sacrificed her only son in the cause of Imam Hussein alayhi salam? Would we sacrifice for our Imam, Imam Mahdi, Ajallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, like Ummul Wahhab sacrificed for Imam Hussein alayhi salam? We're coming into these nights of Muharram, and these nights are a wake-up call for us. These stories should shake us. These stories should motivate us to get our priorities together. Ummul Wahhab, after this, she went back to the camp of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and took the young bride of her son into her arms. Just then, these tent curtains lifted, and Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam came in. Ya Ummul Masa'ib, mother of the tragedies, what she had to see in these days. La ilaha illallah. She embraced both of them and offered her condolences to them, saying, may Allah give you patience to bear Wahhab's loss. This newlywed wife of Wahhab came to where the head of her husband was laying. His severed head was laying in the ground, and she started wiping the blood away from the face of her husband. When this cursed person with no heart, Shemar, he saw her, he commanded his servant to strike her with his club. So the servant came behind her and struck her in the head with the club, and she was the first woman to attain martyrdom in the ranks of Imam Hussein. قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَا وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. Say, indeed my prayer, my sacrifice, my living and my dying are all for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. This is what we gain from their story. We have to ask ourselves a critical question: what sacrifices are we making in our lives to defend and support the cause of our religion? How are we working to support and help the cause of our Imam? Is my prayer, my sacrifice, my living, my dying? Is it all for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Don't we read in Ziyarat Ashura, Allahumma aj'al mahyaya mahya Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad wa mamati mamata Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Oh Allah, make my life in the same way as Muhammad and Muhammad's household lived, and make me die on the same principles which Muhammad and Muhammad's household died. This is our goal. This is our goal in life. We have to strive to be good followers of Ahlul Bayt, alayhimus salam. And this requires a lot of struggle, perseverance, sacrifice, which we all find present in this story of this great example, Wahhab and her son. She readily sacrificed her son for sake of Imam Hussein and placed her Imam above everything else in this world. Lastly, we come to the third lady we'd like to discuss tonight, and we end with the Nusayba of Musab ibn Aqil. And in this Nusayba, it has within it the story of an elderly lady named Taw'a, who supported and defended Imam Hussein's emissary, Muslim ibn Aqil. Her story shows her bravery and her love for the household of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We recall a time when Imam Hussein alayhi salam was sent thousands upon thousands of letters inviting him to Kufa to lead them, to guide them. How did they treat their Imam when he came to them? Ya Allah. We remember Muslim ibn Aqil in these nights. How did they treat their Imam when he came to them? Before he proceeded on his journey, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he sent out before him an ambassador to the people of Kufa by the name of Muslim ibn Aqil. I can only picture a lonely, abandoned Muslim ibn Aqil wandering the streets of Kufa in these nights. Just yesterday, everyone was welcoming Muslim with open arms, competing with each other just to get a glimpse at the ambassador of Imam Hussein. The city was becoming dark as the sun set, and he could hear the hooves of the horses nearby. The enemy soldiers were after Muslim now. He covered his head with his cloak, hoping that he wouldn't be recognized as he treads these alleyways of Kufa. There was a curfew being enforced, but where could Muslim go in this city which betrayed him? He was exhausted due to this persistent pursuit of the enemy soldiers. So not knowing what to do or where to go, this lonely Muslim ibn Aqil, he came and sat down on the doorstep of a house. An elderly lady came out with a candle and asked, "What were you doing here?" He said, "Please, just give me some water." She came and brought him water. Afterwards, she suggested that he return home. "Oh, my son, why don't you return to your house? Don't you realize that your wife and your children must be worried sick about you? Don't you have a house with a wife and children?" Ya Allah, a lump came into Muslim's throat. Tears started flowing from his eyes when he remembered his family and his home. He said, "Good lady, I have a house, but it's in a distant land, far away. My wife and my young daughters are at home, and my sons are in Kufa. Perhaps they'll wait for me forever. In this unfriendly town, I have no home and no one who I can turn to for shelter." She said, "Son, where do you come from?" Muslim told her, "I am from the city of Rasulullah. I came as a guest on the invitation of the people of Kufa. Thousands came and welcomed me on my arrival. Now there's not a single soul who will allow me to go in his house." She raised the candle a little bit and brought it closer to his face. Once she saw him clearly, she said, "My God, you're Muslim, the emissary of my Imam, my beloved Hussein, who is hunted by Ubaidullah's soldiers. How didn't I recognize you at the first glance? when your words, your accent, your demeanor all have the stamp of the Prophet's house. This elderly lady started to weep and she said, how will I face my lady Fatima on the day of reckoning when she will ask me, my Hussein's emissary came to you without any friends, without any shelter, but you callously turn him away. What reply will I give to her? The least I can do for you is shelter you in my own house until an opportunity arise from you to escape from this cursed city. Asked Muslim to remain in the attic of her house. She gave him some food, but how could Muslim eat on a night like this? How could he want food knowing the situation at hand, wondering if his 2 small children were all right? They're wandering the streets of Kufa without their father. So instead, he decided to pass this night in prayers. He had a feeling that this would be his last night. Ya Allah. The lady told Muslim that she had a son. He worked in the army. He was trustworthy Shia. She could seek his help and assistance when he came back home. So her son came home and told his mother, we were patrolling the streets searching for Muslim. She couldn't believe it, what her son was telling her. She started scolding her son, but her son tricked her into thinking that he was just pretending. His mother believed him and made him take an oath not to reveal what she was going to tell him now at this moment. He swore by Allah and swore by his faith. She then told him about what happened that night and that Muslim ibn Aqil was actually in their home. Later that night, he snuck out the house, telling his mother that he was going to search for the sons of Muslim to bring them back to their father, when in reality he was going to claim his prize. He was selling his deen for this dunya. He wanted to get the prize with Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad for capturing Muslim. He came back with mounted soldiers. This traitor returned to his own house for Muslim's arrest. Muslim was engaged in his salat. Muslim was praying in his last nights. When he heard the beating of the horses' hoofs on the roads, he knew that the soldiers had come for his arrest. He took out his sword and ran out of the house. This elderly lady, this brave woman, she stood at the threshold of her door and she couldn't believe that her son brought these soldiers to her house. She fell on Muslim's feet and started to cry, "Ya Muslim, my prince, how can I explain to you that it wasn't me who betrayed you? It was my cursed son. I trusted him. I never suspected he would do this. I won't let these soldiers cross the threshold except over my dead body." Muslim knew that she was sincere. He said, "As your guest, whom you've shown hospitality to, I can't allow you to be killed by these heartless soldiers and let your house be destroyed. Let me go out and sell my life as dearly as I can." The soldiers were taken by surprise at seeing Muslim coming out of the house with his sword out like an enraged lion. He fought them one by one, bravely, into a narrow alleyway, and they knew they couldn't win, so they dug a hole for Muslim. They put a hole and they covered it up as a trap. They were afraid of Muslim. They started ganging up on him. They started pelting Muslim with stones from the rooftops. They started shooting arrows at Muslim from the rooftops. They started throwing fire down on him until they backed him up, causing him to fall into that trap that they dug for him. Once Muslim fell in this hole, he was losing blood rapidly. He couldn't regain his footing and he fell unconscious. It was now just a matter of moments before he was captured. He was bound in chains. Ya Muslim ibn Aqil. When Muslim came back to consciousness, he found himself a captive. His wounds made him very thirsty. Before being marched off to the court of Ubaydullah, Muslim was paraded around through the streets of Kufa with heavy chains on his hands and on his feet. The people of Kufa, who only just a few days before were competing just to get a glimpse of him, were now watching him from their windows as if he was a stranger. He was a stranger in Kufa, and even some people were hard-hearted enough to throw stones at Muslim. What he had to go through for the sake of Imam Hussein. When Muslim came in front of Ubaydullah, he stood upright with dignity. The governor asked him whether he knew what awaited him and his master, Hussein ibn Ali. Muslim replied, "O mercenary of Yazid, I don't care what you do to me, but I don't like you to hear on your cursed tongue the mentioning of my master Imam Hussein." Ubaydullah, in order to seem noble and generous in the eyes of the people, he said, "According to the age-old custom, I want you to mention the last desire before you are beheaded, so that I can fulfill this desire." He thought that Muslim, maybe he might request him to spare the lives of his 2 young sons when they were captured. But Muslim, he only had one thing on his mind, and that was the safety of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Like a drowning man who reaches out for his last hope to be rescued, Muslim decided that this was his chance. This was his last hope. He immediately replied, "Ubaydullah, if you are true to your word, fulfill my last wish and send a message to my master Imam Hussein, asking him to go back to Medina and abandon the idea of coming to Kufa." Ubaydullah could never accept this request. He ordered his executioners to take Muslim to the top of the government house and to behead him in front of all the people. When the sword of the executioner was swaying over Muslim's head, his last thoughts must have been with his master Imam Hussein alayhi salam, whom he loved and cherished more than anything in his life. His only regret to the end was that he could not do what he wanted most, is to warn Hussein against these treacherous people of Kufa. They severed the blessed head of Muslim ibn Aqil. They threw his body off the roof down onto the streets of Kufa. Ya Muslim, how many bones must have broke when your body hit the ground? As if this was not enough for them, it was ordered that they take his head and send it to Yazid. And what did they do with the body of Muslim ibn Aqil? They refused to even bury him. Instead, they hung his body for all to see. But where did they take his body? Did they take it into the town square? No, they took it to the place where all the garbage was dumped. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر الأحد مني لزياراتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
أيها الله
يا الله
أيها الله
يا حسين.
علي رضا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي